Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here today, for your interest in Brazil, and specifically in this very, very important topic of the connection between agriculture and sustainability and a science-based model for agriculture. I'd like to start by thanking, I'll do my round of brief thank yous here too. Number one, to our Export and Investment Promotion Agency, Apex Brazil, here represented by its Chief Operating Officer, General Mauro Cigi, head of our Miami office, for organizing this very timely discussion in association with all our other partners, especially the Atlantic Council and all the others that are listed there. I also wish to thank Purdue University for supporting Apex Brazil in this project. This year, Purdue University is celebrating 150 years of academic excellence, and I would like to thank Dr. Karen Plaut, Dean of the College of Agriculture, for all the support and knowledge that Purdue brings to this event. Finally, I wish to thank Undersecretary Ted McKinney, who will be joining us later, as was announced, who, by the way, is also a Purdue alumnus and who has been a good friend of Brazil at the USDA. The purpose of this conversation is to promote sustainable and science-based agriculture through the exchange of experiences and best practices of businesses, researchers, experts, and government. I thank all the panelists who bring their contributions to this debate. I would like to recognize also the incredible work that has been done so far by our Minister of Agriculture, Tereza Cristina, who will be coming to town next week in an official visit. Minister Tereza Cristina has worked very closely with the private sector to promote Brazilian agribusiness worldwide. So it's no wonder that some of Brazil's most important agribusinesses associations are partners to this event. As has been mentioned, the Brazilian Beef Exporters Association, the Brazilian Association of Animal Protein, the National Confederation of Agriculture, the Brazilian Rural Society, Brazilian Sugar Producers Association, UNICA. I would also like to say a few words about the fundamental changes that Brazil is going through. As you know, about a year ago, Brazilians elected a new president, and as people say, elections have consequences. President Bolsonaro had a clear mandate from the Brazilian people to rid the country of the corruption that had come to dominate the federal government, to re-establish public safety in the country, and to take Brazil in a new economic direction. Basically, that meant moving away from the statist policies that have for so many years plagued the Brazilian economy and kept it closed to trade and investment, and caused the largest economic recession in Brazilian history, with our GDP falling 7.2% in 2015-2016. Since day one, the Bolsonaro administration has been committed to economic fundamentals, balancing the budget, promoting economic growth, improving the climate for doing business in Brazil, creating jobs, attracting foreign investment, and opening and integrating the Brazilian economy into the global economy. Under the guidance of the Ministry of the Economy, Paulo Guedes, Brazil has adopted a private sector-led, business-friendly approach to economic growth, and we have delivered some impressive achievements for such a period of time. The Bolsonaro administration, as you know, has been in power for just 10 months. What have we done in this last 10 months? Let me mention just a few achievements here. One, the approval of the pension system reform by an overwhelming majority, a reform that had been discussed since the late 1990s. So it's been a long time in the making. Bolsonaro administration delivered it. It had to be approved by both houses of Congress, and it passed overwhelmingly in both of them. It will go a long way in helping us to balance the fiscal books in Brazil and provides a momentum for further reforms. Another important measure approved recently was the law of economic freedom. Its main purpose is to make it easier to do business in Brazil, both in agriculture, agribusiness, and in other businesses, especially by cutting red tape to open and operate new businesses and improving Brazil's business environment for both domestic and foreign companies. Just a few weeks ago, President Bolsonaro delivered to the Brazilian Senate 3 proposals of amendments to the Constitution aimed at achieving fiscal responsibility at the 3 levels of government: federal, state, and municipal levels. The actions taken by the new administration in the last 10 months are already paying off. The GDP is gradually picking up. We are expected to grow 0.9%. It sounds very meager, very little, but Brazil this time is growing for the right reasons. We are not growing because we are attracting investment, because we have built a tremendous wall of protection around the country. That wall is being destroyed, being demolished. We are not attracting investment because we have the highest interest rates in the world, as it happened a few years ago. Actually, we have record lows right now. So the growth we see is, a growth that is sustainable and that's taking place for the right economic reasons, for sound reasons. So it should pick up. It's expected it will pick up in the next years. We expect to grow 2% next year, 2.5% in 2021. Inflation is at a record low at 3.3%, well within the target established by the central bank. And as I said, long-term interest rates are falling and currently at a historic low of 5.5%, expected to fall further by the end of the year. There's a pickup in industrial activity, 2.3% expected growth for next year. We have generated a trade surplus of over $50 billion this year. Brazil received $82 billion in foreign direct investment, placing Brazil among the biggest recipients of FDI in the world today. We are also running what is the largest privatization program anywhere in the world. Just this year we have privatized 12 airports, 4 ports, and we have 22 more airports scheduled to be privatized next year and in 2021. The portfolio of this privatization program includes over 100 projects with some $320 billion in opportunities for foreign investments in railways, roads, ports, the mining sector, energy, especially oil and gas. Now let me turn very briefly to the topic of this dialogue. As you know, Brazil is an agricultural giant, and agribusiness has been one of the most dynamic sectors of our economy, accounting for 25% of our GDP and some 40% of our exports. The emergence of Brazil as an agricultural powerhouse is demonstrated by our leadership in products such as, let me do a little bragging here, orange juice, coffee and sugar, Brazil is first. Beef, we are second producer, first exporter. Poultry, we're second producer, first exporter. Corn, third producer, second exporter. Soy, second producer, first exporter. And cotton, fourth producer, second exporter. So there you have all the data. What few people know is that this agricultural revolution was mainly the result of successive gains in productivity. There was, of course, an expansion to the West, not much different from what happened in the US in the 19th century, right? But the single most important factor that explains that extraordinary growth is the use of technology. Between 1975 and 2017, so roughly 40 some years, for example, our production of grains increased sixfold, from 38 million tons to 238 million tons. But the planted area only doubled. So sixfold increase in production, the area just doubled. Technology accounted for 59% of the agricultural growth in production, more than land, which was responsible for 25%, and labor with 16% combined. Between 1990 and 2018, Brazilian beef production increased 139%, while the area for cattle grazing decreased 15%. So some of the alarmism you see there, these connections between the growth of agriculture and challenges to the environment, most of them are overplayed and exaggerated. Also, technology has allowed Brazil to become an agricultural power while preserving its forests and natural environment. Only around 29% of the Brazilian territory is used by agriculture and cattle grazing. That compares, if you compare with some European countries, especially the most environmentally militant, I'd say, you see that amount is almost double sometimes. Huh? I said 29% used by agriculture and cattle grazing, which is less than the total amount of Brazil's protected areas, which is 31% of our territory. 31% of Brazilian territory, a territory which is larger than the 48 contiguous American states, as you know, is protected by laws, environmental reserves, preservation areas. On top of that, the Brazilian Forest Code requires that farmers and ranchers in the Amazon preserve 80% of the native vegetation within their private property.